Sophie rushed through the glass doors of Sterling Tech Tower, her heart pounding in her chest. Her baby girl Maya was balanced on one hip, and her work bag kept sliding off her shoulder. This was not how she planned her Monday morning. She checked her phone again. 3 missed calls from her boss already, and it wasn't even 9 o'clock yet. The quarterly report presentation was in 2 hours, and she absolutely had to be there. But her babysitter had texted at 6 in the morning saying she had the flu. No backup plan. No family nearby. Just Sophie and her 18-month-old daughter and a very important workday ahead. "Please be good today, baby," Sophie whispered to Maya as they entered the elevator. "Mommy really needs this to go smoothly." Maya just giggled and played with Sophie's hair. She had no idea that bringing a toddler to a fancy corporate office was basically breaking every rule in the book. But what choice did Sophie have? She was a single mom. She worked hard to keep her job in the finance department. One missed presentation could mean getting passed over for that promotion she desperately needed. The elevator dinged at the 14th floor. Sophie's floor. She took a deep breath and stepped out, trying to look confident even though she felt like she might throw up from stress. Her cubicle was in the back corner, thank goodness. Maybe she could keep Maya quiet and out of sight. She set up a little area on the floor with some toys from her bag. A stuffed elephant. Some blocks. A coloring book and crayons. Maya seemed happy enough sitting there and stacking the blocks into wobbly towers. For the first hour, everything was fine. Better than fine, actually. Maya played quietly while Sophie worked on her computer, putting the final touches on her presentation. She even managed to join a conference call with her camera off, and nobody knew she had a baby sitting right next to her desk. But then things started to fall apart. Maya got bored with the blocks. She wanted to explore. And when an 18-month-old wants to explore, good luck stopping her. Sophie was deep in the conference call, listening to her boss talk about revenue projections, when she realized something was wrong. The floor next to her was empty. No Maya, no toys, just empty carpet. Her stomach dropped. She muted her microphone and looked around frantically. No sign of her daughter anywhere. "I'll be right back," she typed in the chat, then practically jumped out of her chair. The cubicle maze suddenly felt like a nightmare. She speed-walked through the aisles, trying not to run and draw attention to herself. Her co-workers gave her strange looks, but she didn't care. Where was Maya? She checked the break room. Empty. The copy room. Nothing. Her heart was racing now, real panic setting in. What if Maya had gotten into an elevator? What if she'd fallen somewhere? What if someone had taken her? Then she heard it. A tiny laugh. Maya's laugh. Sophie ran toward the sound, turning a corner near the fancy executive offices. And that's when she saw something that made her freeze in place. There was Alexander Sterling, the CEO of the entire company. The man whose face was on magazine covers and business news websites. 34 years old, handsome in an intimidating way and supposedly worth billions of dollars. He was standing in the hallway with 3 other executives, all of them in expensive suits, talking about some important business deal, and running straight toward them. Arms stretched out wide was Maya. Sophie tried to call out, but her voice caught in her throat. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. Maya reached Alexander and wrapped her little arms around his leg, holding on tight like she'd found something precious. The executives stopped talking. Everyone stared at the toddler who had just crashed their meeting. Alexander looked down and Sophie could see the annoyance on his face. He was probably about to say something harsh, probably about to demand whose child this was and why there was a baby in the executive wing. But then Maya looked up at him. She smiled her biggest smile, the one that always made Sophie's heart melt. And then Maya said the one word she'd just learned last week, the word she'd been saying to every man she saw. Dada. The hallway went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Sophie's face went hot. She rushed forward, trying to apologize, trying to pull Maya away. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling. She doesn't know what she's saying. She just learned that word. Please, I'm really sorry. But Alexander wasn't listening to her. He was staring at Maya with the strangest expression. Not angry. Something else. Something Sophie couldn't quite read. He crouched down to Maya's level, studying her face carefully. Too carefully. And that's when Sophie noticed it too. The similarities. Maya had the same dark brown hair as Alexander. The same unusual eyes, brown with little flecks of gold in them. Even the same determined set of her tiny jaw. Sophie's knees felt weak. No. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not now. What's your name? Alexander asked, his voice quiet but firm. Sophie Chen. I work in the financial analysis department. This is Maya. My babysitter got sick today and I had no other choice. I know I shouldn't have brought her. It won't happen again. I promised it. How old is she? That was a weird question. Sophie's mind raced, trying to figure out why he was asking. 18 months. She watched his face change. He was doing math in his head. She could practically see the wheels turning. 18 months old. Which meant Maya was born 27 months ago. Which meant Sophie got pregnant about 2 years and 3 months ago. The business conference in Singapore. Sophie had been there presenting her graduate thesis. She'd met a guy at the hotel bar. He'd said his name was Alex, just Alex. They'd talked for hours about everything and nothing. He made her laugh. He was different from anyone she'd ever met. And they'd spent one night together before going their separate ways. She never got his last name. Never got his phone number. It was supposed to be just one perfect night that she'd remember forever. Nothing more. Except 3 weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. And by the time she'd figured out that Alex from the business conference was actually Alexander Sterling, Billionaire CEO, he was already engaged to some socialite named Victoria Whitmore. His picture was everywhere, with his beautiful fiancée on his arm. Sophie had made a choice then. She wouldn't be the scandal. She wouldn't be the woman who trapped a billionaire with a baby. She'd raise Maya on her own and never tell anyone who the father really was. But now here they were, and Alexander was looking at her like he knew. Like he'd figured it all out just from seeing Maya's face. Ms. Chen, he said, standing up slowly. His voice was calm, but there was something dangerous underneath it. We need to talk. Come to my office. Right now. Mr. Sterling, I have a presentation in an hour. I'll handle it. This is more important. The other executives were staring, clearly confused about what was happening. One of them tried to speak. Sir, the merger discussion, not now. Alexander cut him off, his eyes never leaving Sophie's face. Everyone clear this hallway. I need privacy. Sophie's hands were shaking as she picked up Maya. Her daughter was still smiling, happy as could be, completely unaware that she'd just turned her mother's entire world upside down. Alexander gestured toward the big double doors at the end of the hall. His office, the place where billion-dollar decisions were made. And now, apparently, where Sophie's carefully kept secret was about to explode into the open. She took a deep breath and followed him, Maya still holding on to her tight. Everything was about to change. She could feel it. The quiet life she'd built for herself and her daughter. The secret she'd kept for so long, the careful balance she'd maintained. All of it was about to come crashing down, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Alexander's office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city below, and the furniture probably cost more than Sophie's yearly salary. She stood there holding Maya, feeling completely out of place in her simple work dress while he closed the door behind them. He didn't sit at his huge desk. Instead, he walked to the windows and stood there with his back to her, his hands clasped behind him. The silence stretched on forever. Sophie could hear her own heartbeat. Singapore, he finally said. 2 years and 3 months ago. The International Finance Summit. Sophie's throat went dry. Yes, you left the next morning, no note. No number, nothing. He turned around and the look on his face made her stomach twist. I looked for you. For months. I had people searching every database, every conference registry. The woman from the hotel bar who told me her name was Sophie and made me laugh for the first time in years. Just gone. You said your name was Alex, Sophie said quietly. You told me you were in town for business. I didn't know you were Alexander Sterling. I was just a graduate student. We were two strangers having one night together. And when you found out about her, he looked at Maya, who was playing with Sophie's necklace, completely oblivious to the tension in the room. When you realized you were pregnant, you didn't think I deserved to know. The words hit like a slap. Sophie's eyes stung with tears she refused to let fall. When I found out I was pregnant, I finally saw your picture in the news. You were engaged to Victoria Whitmore. Your wedding was being planned. I saw photos of you two at charity events looking perfect together. That engagement was fake, Alexander said, his voice hard. A business arrangement between families. It meant nothing. Well, I didn't know that. All I knew was that you were this billionaire CEO about to marry someone from your world, and I was a broke grad student having your baby. I wasn't going to be the scandal that destroyed your perfect life. So you decided to just, what, raise our daughter alone? Struggle by yourself? Yes. Sophie's voice rose and Maya looked up at her with worried eyes. Sophie took a breath, forcing herself to stay calm. Yes, I did. Because I didn't want your money. I didn't want to be called a gold digger or a liar. I didn't want Maya to grow up knowing her father only helped because he had to, not because he wanted to. Alexander moved closer, and Sophie could see his jaw working like he was trying to control his temper. That wasn't your choice to make alone. It was the only choice I could make. They stood there glaring at each other, both breathing hard. Maya started to fuss, sensing the anger in the room. Sophie bounced her gently, making soft, shushing sounds. Alexander's expression changed when he looked at Maya. The anger melted away, replaced by something softer, something that looked almost like pain. Can I hold her? Sophie hesitated. Every protective instinct in her body screamed no. But she looked at Maya, who was reaching toward Alexander with her little hands, and slowly nodded. Alexander took Maya carefully like she was made of glass. He held her awkwardly at first, not quite sure what to do with his arms. But Maya didn't care. She grabbed his tie and smiled at him, babbling happy nonsense. Hi there, he said softly. His whole face changed. The harsh CEO disappeared, and for a moment Sophie saw Alex again. The guy from the bar who'd made her feel like the most interesting person in the world. Dada, Maya said again, patting his cheek with her small hand. Alexander's eyes got shiny like he might actually cry. Sophie had never seen anything about him in the news that suggested he even could cry. I want a paternity test, he said, still looking at Maya. Not because I doubt it. I can see myself in her face. But I need it to be official. Okay, Sophie agreed. And I want to be her father. Really be her father. Not just write checks. I want to be part of her life. Sophie's hands clenched. You can't just decide that and expect me to go along with it. You have no idea what being a parent means. You can't swoop in and out when it's convenient for your schedule. His eyes met hers and they were fierce. Then I'll make time. I'll change my schedule. I'll do whatever it takes. But I won't walk away from her. What about when you get bored? What about when being a dad interferes with your billion-dollar deals? She needs someone who'll be there, not someone who treats her like another business project. Do you really think that little of me? I don't know you well enough to think anything. One night 2 years ago doesn't mean I know what kind of father you'll be. Maya started crying. The raised voices scared her. Alexander looked panicked, bouncing her the wrong way, making it worse. Without thinking, Sophie took her back and pressed Maya's head to her shoulder, swaying gently and humming the little tune she always used. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. Shh, it's okay. Maya's cries faded to hiccups, then stopped. She stuck her thumb in her mouth and rested her head on Sophie's shoulder, her eyes already getting heavy. It was almost nap time. Alexander watched them with an expression Sophie couldn't quite read. You're really good at that. I've had 18 months of practice and alone. It wasn't a question. You did all of this alone. Sophie nodded, not trusting her voice. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my doctor. We can do the test today. Results come back in 24 hours. And then what? Then we figure this out. How to co-parent. How to make this work. He paused, studying her face. Are you seeing anyone? Is there someone else in her life? No, it's just been the two of us. Something flashed across his face. Relief, maybe. That must have been hard. Doing everything by yourself. We managed. Sophie's voice came out defensive. I have a good job. My parents help when they can. We're fine. But you shouldn't have had to just manage. You should have had support. Help. Someone to share the load. He ran a hand through his hair, messing it up for the first time since Sophie met him. I can't change the past. I can't get back the time I missed. But I can make sure the future is different. What does that mean? It means whatever you need. Better childcare. A bigger apartment. Help with expenses, anything. Sophie's back went straight. I don't want your money, Alexander. This isn't about money. This is about making sure my daughter has everything she needs. Making sure her mother isn't struggling to make ends meet. I'm not a charity case. I didn't say you were. But you're raising my child and you've been doing it without help. Let me help now, please. The please surprised her. Sophie looked at him. Really looked at him and saw something she didn't expect. He wasn't trying to take over. He wasn't trying to fix everything with money because he thought he could buy his way into being a good father. He just looked lost. Like a man who'd just found out he had a daughter and had no idea what to do about it. Maya was fully asleep now, her little mouth opened slightly, her hand still clutching Sophie's shirt. She was so small, so innocent, and she deserved to have her father in her life if he was serious about this. "Okay," Sophie said quietly. "We can do the test. We can figure out how to make this work. But I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for her. And if you hurt her, if you let her down, if you make promises you can't keep, I will never forgive you. I won't let her down. You better not." Alexander's assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, the board meeting." "Cancel it," Alexander said without looking away from Sophie and Maya. "Cancel everything for the rest of the week." The assistant's eyes went wide. "Everything?" "Everything. I have more important things to deal with." After the assistant left, looking completely shocked, Alexander turned back to Sophie. "Can I ask you something? That night in Singapore, did you mean what you said? About how talking to me felt different from talking to anyone else?" Sophie remembered. She'd told him that after their third drink, when they'd moved from the bar to a quiet corner and talked for hours. "Yes," she admitted. "I meant it. I felt it too. I never forgot you, Sophie. Even when I couldn't find you. Even when I thought I'd never see you again." He looked at Maya, sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. Maybe this is the universe giving us a second chance. Not just as parents, but as whatever we might have been if we'd had more than one night. Sophie's heart skipped. Let's focus on figuring out the parent thing first. Fair enough. He smiled, and it was the same smile that had made her heart flip in that hotel bar 2 years ago. But I'm not giving up on the other possibility. Before Sophie could respond, Maya stirred and opened her eyes. She looked at Alexander and reached for him again, making grabby hands. This time, when he took her, he held her more naturally. Maya laid her head on his shoulder, and Alexander closed his eyes like he was memorizing the feeling. And Sophie realized that whether she was ready for it or not, everything had just changed, for all of them. 3 weeks later, Sophie's life looked completely different. The paternity test came back exactly as they knew it would. Alexander was Maya's father, and just like he promised, he showed up. Every single day. At first it was awkward. Really awkward. Here was this billionaire CEO sitting on Sophie's worn-out carpet in her tiny apartment, trying to figure out how to play with blocks. Maya thought it was the best thing ever. Sophie wasn't so sure. "You're stacking them wrong," Sophie said one evening, watching him build a tower that kept falling over. Alexander looked up at her, confused. "There's a wrong way to stack blocks. You need to make the base wider. Like this." She sat down next to him and showed him. Their hands touched as she guided his, and both of them pulled back quickly like they'd been burned. "Thanks," he said, his voice a little rough. Maya clapped her hands and knocked the whole tower down anyway, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. Alexander laughed too, and Sophie realized it was the first time she'd heard him really laugh since that night in Singapore. It changed his whole face, made him look younger and less serious. "She's got a good sense of humor," he said, rebuilding the tower for Maya to knock down again. "She gets that from you." "Apparently." He glanced at her with a small smile. Yeah. When you're not being all CEO serious, you're actually pretty funny." "I'll take that as a compliment." The days turned into a routine. Alexander would show up after work, sometimes still in his suit, and spend 2 or 3 hours with Maya. He learned her favorite songs. He figured out that she only liked her apple slices cut a certain way. He discovered that she needed her stuffed bunny to fall asleep and that she hated having her face wiped after meals. But there were bumps in the road. Big ones. One afternoon, a massive delivery arrived at Sophie's door. The delivery guys had to make 3 trips to bring everything in. When Sophie finally got through all the boxes, she felt her blood pressure rising. Designer baby clothes. Expensive educational toys. A tablet made specifically for toddlers that probably cost more than Sophie's laptop. And something that looked like it might be furniture. Alexander arrived an hour later and Sophie was waiting for him. "What is all this?" she demanded, gesturing at the pile of boxes taking over her small living room. "Gifts for Maya. I saw that she needed some new clothes and I thought, you bought her a $5,000 smart playhouse, Alexander." He blinked. "Is that too much?" The reviews said it was educational. She's not even 2 years old. She doesn't need a computer in her playhouse. I don't understand why you're upset. I'm just trying to give her nice things. Sophie took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Because this isn't about giving her nice things. You're trying to buy her love, and that's not how being a parent works. His face went cold the way it did when he was angry. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? The designer clothes, the expensive toys, the offer to move us to a penthouse in your building. You think throwing money at us makes you a good father? I think making sure my daughter has the best of everything makes me responsible. Maya started crying in the other room. The yelling scared her. Sophie and Alexander both froze, staring at each other. Sophie went to get her, picking her up and soothing her with gentle words and soft humming. When she came back, Alexander was sitting on her old couch with his head in his hands. I'm messing this up, he said quietly. Sophie sat down next to him, Maya in her lap. You're not messing it up. You're just learning, we both are. I miss so much. Her first words. Her first steps? I wasn't there and I'm trying to make up for it. You can't make up for lost time with money. You make up for it by being here now, and you are here. Every single day, even when you're exhausted from work. That matters more than any expensive toy. He looked at Maya, who had stopped crying and was now playing with Sophie's hair. She really likes those cheap plastic cups from the grocery store more than the $100 educational toys, doesn't she? Sophie laughed despite herself. Kids are weird that way. Can you help me? Tell me when I'm doing too much? I don't really know what I'm doing here. None of us really know what we're doing. We're all just figuring it out as we go. That night after Maya was in bed, they sat on Sophie's tiny balcony drinking tea. The air was cool, and the city lights stretched out below them. Can I ask you something? Alexander said. That night in Singapore. After I left the next morning, did you think about me? Sophie was quiet for a moment, remembering. Every day, especially after I found out about Maya, I'd see your face in the news and I'd wonder what you'd think if you knew. If you'd be happy or angry or scared. I thought about you too. I had people looking for months. The woman who told me I was pretentious when I tried to impress her with business talk. The woman who made me forget about everything I was supposed to be doing and just be myself. I didn't think someone like you could be interested in someone like me. Not really. That's part of why I didn't try harder to find you. Someone like me? He turned to look at her. You mean someone who built a company but forgot how to build relationships? Someone who was so focused on success that he almost married someone he didn't love just because it made business sense? The engagement really was fake? Completely. Victoria and I were friends. Our families wanted to merge companies. We agreed to play along for a while, but we both knew we'd never actually get married. She's engaged to someone else now. Someone she actually loves. I didn't know that. There's a lot we don't know about each other, but I want to change that. He reached over and took her hand. These last 3 weeks, getting to know Maya, getting to know you again, it's been the best part of my day. Every day, Sophie's heart beat faster. Alexander, I know we said we'd focus on being parents. And we should. But I can't pretend I don't feel something more. When you laugh at Maya doing something silly, or when you fall asleep on the couch during her nap time, or when you sing to her in the kitchen, I don't want this to just be about co-parenting. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm falling for you. Maybe I started falling that night in Singapore and never really stopped. And if there's any chance you feel even a little bit the same way, I need to know. Sophie looked at their joined hands, then at his face. He looked vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Not the confident CEO, just a man hoping for something he couldn't control or buy. You terrify me, she admitted. Your world is so different from mine. The money, the attention, the pressure. And if we try this and it doesn't work, Maya's in the middle of it. I can't risk her getting hurt. What if we don't fail? What if we do? Sophie, I've built $1 billion company by taking calculated risks. But this isn't calculated. This is me taking a leap and hoping you'll catch me, because you and Maya are worth any risk. Before Sophie could answer, her phone buzzed, then buzzed again and again. She pulled it out and felt her stomach drop. Social media notifications. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Someone had taken a photo of Alexander leaving her apartment building last night. It was all over the internet. Billionaire CEO's secret baby. Alexander Sterling spotted leaving mystery woman's apartment. Who is the mother of Sterling's hidden child? The comments were worse. People calling her a gold digger, saying she trapped him, accusing her of destroying his relationship with Victoria, even though that had ended months before Sophie even contacted him. Alexander took the phone from her shaking hands and read through the posts. His face went dark with anger. I'm calling my lawyers right now. We'll sue everyone who— You can't sue the entire internet, Sophie said, her voice hollow. Then I'll make a statement. I'll tell them the truth. And say what? That I had your baby and didn't tell you? That'll make it worse. So what do we do? Sophie looked at Maya's closed bedroom door. Her baby girl, sleeping peacefully, had no idea that tomorrow the world would know who her father was, that photographers would camp outside their building, that people would say terrible things about her mother. Maybe this was a mistake, Sophie whispered. Maybe you being in her life is too complicated. Don't say that. Look at what's already happening and we're not even together. Imagine how bad it'll get if we actually try to be a family. Alexander grabbed her shoulders gently, making her look at him. I don't care what they say. I don't care about the headlines or the gossip or any of it. I care about you and Maya, and I'm not walking away because things got hard. This is different from your business problems, Alexander. This affects Maya. This affects her future, her safety, everything. Then we protect her. Together. Because that's what parents do. His voice was firm. I told you I wouldn't let her down, and I meant it. I'm not going anywhere, Sophie, not now. Not ever. Sophie wanted to believe him. She really did. But as her phone kept buzzing with more notifications, more cruel comments, more invasive questions, she wondered if love was enough when the whole world was watching. The next morning was a nightmare. Sophie woke up to find photographers camped outside her apartment building. Actual photographers with huge cameras waiting to get a shot of her and Maya. Her phone had over 300 notifications. Her coworkers were texting asking if the rumors were true. Even her parents called, confused and worried. Sophie, what's going on? Her mom asked. The news is saying you have Alexander Sterling's baby? It's complicated, Mom. I'll explain later. Is he Maya's father? Sophie closed her eyes. Yes. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to drag anyone into this mess. I thought I could handle it on my own. Oh, sweetheart, you never have to handle things alone. After she hung up, Sophie looked at Maya, who was happily eating breakfast and had no idea that everything was falling apart. How was she supposed to take her daughter outside with all those cameras? How was she supposed to go to work? How was she supposed to live a normal life? Her phone rang. Alexander. Don't leave your apartment, he said immediately. I'm sending a car and security. They'll get you and Maya out safely. I can't live like this, Alexander. I can't have security guards following us around. This isn't the life I want for her. I know. But right now we need to keep you both safe. I'm handling this, Sophie. I promise. How? How do you handle the entire internet attacking me? You let me worry about that. Just stay inside until my people get there, please. An hour later, 2 security guards showed up at her door. They were professional and kind, but it still felt surreal. They escorted Sophie and Maya down a back stairway and into a black SUV with tinted windows. The photographers never even saw them leave. The car took them to Alexander's office building, but they went through a private entrance. No crowds, no cameras. Just straight up to the top floor. Alexander was waiting. He immediately took Maya, who reached for him happily, completely oblivious to the chaos. Dada, she said, patting his face. Hey, little one. He kissed her forehead, then looked at Sophie. Are you okay? No, I'm really not. Sophie's voice cracked. They're saying horrible things about me online. That I'm a liar. That I trapped you. That I'm using Maya to get your money. None of that is true, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. How? I'm holding a press conference in an hour. Sophie's eyes went wide. What? I'm telling the truth. Our story. The real one. Alexander, you can't. That'll make everything worse. It'll make it better. Right now, people are making up stories because they don't know what really happened. So I'm going to tell them. He took her hand. Trust me, please. Sophie wanted to argue, but she was so tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of being scared. Tired of protecting a secret that was already out. Okay, she whispered. But I'm watching, Alexander. Set up Maya with toys in his office, while Sophie watched the press conference on the big screen TV. He stood at a podium with at least 30 reporters and camera crews pointed at him. This was being broadcast live. The whole world was watching. 2 years ago, Alexander began, his voice steady and clear. I met an incredible woman at a conference in Singapore. We spent one evening together talking about everything from economics to our favorite books. She challenged every pretentious thing I said. She made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in years. And then circumstances separated us. The reporters were dead silent, hanging on every word. 9 months later, she gave birth to my daughter, Maya. She raised our baby alone without any support from me, because she believed she was doing the right thing. When Maya appeared in my office 3 weeks ago, Sophie could have denied everything. She could have disappeared again. Instead, she gave me the chance to be a father. He paused, looking directly into the main camera. Sophie knew he was looking at her. Sophie Chen is not a gold digger. She never asked me for money. She never asked for my name or my connections. The only thing she asked was that I show up for our daughter, that I be present and consistent, that I be a real father, not just a check in the mail. A reporter shouted a question. "Mr. Sterling, are you and Ms. Chen in a relationship?" Alexander's jaw tightened. Sophie and I are co-parenting our daughter. Our priority is Maya's well-being and happiness, but I want to make something very clear to everyone watching. He leaned into the microphone, his voice dropping but somehow becoming more intense. Anyone who attacks Sophie online, anyone who spreads lies about her or our daughter, will hear from my legal team. I will protect my family. And if you think I'm joking, try me. The press conference exploded with questions after that, but Alexander ignored them and walked off the stage. Sophie sat there staring at the screen, her heart pounding. He'd called them his family. On live television, in front of the entire world. When Alexander came back to the office, Maya ran to him immediately. He scooped her up, and Sophie saw something in his face she'd never seen before. Not the angry CEO or the confused new father, just a man who loved his daughter. "That was intense," Sophie said. "I meant every word." He sat down next to her, Maya in his lap. "I'm done hiding how I feel. About her. About you. About all of this." The reporter asked if we were together. "I know. I didn't answer because I didn't want to speak for you. But Sophie, I need you to know something." He shifted Maya to one arm so he could take Sophie's hand. "These past few weeks have been the best of my life. Coming here after work, playing with Maya, talking with you after she falls asleep, learning how to be a dad, learning who you really are. Alexander, I'm in love with you, not because you're Maya's mother, not because of what happened in Singapore, but because of who you are now. The way you sing to her in the mornings, the way you never let me get away with anything, the way you laugh when Maya does something silly. I'm in love with you, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not." Sophie felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "This is crazy. A month ago, I was just trying to keep my job and raise my daughter. Now I'm on the news and you're telling me you love me and everything is completely insane. I know, and I'm sorry my world is so complicated. I'm sorry about the cameras and the gossip and all of it. But I'm not sorry about finding you again. I'm not sorry about Maya, and I won't be sorry about loving you." Maya chose that moment to grab both their faces and pull them together, making them bonk foreheads. She giggled like she'd done the funniest thing ever. Sophie laughed through her tears. "I think she's trying to tell us something. Smart kid." Alexander smiled, that real smile that made him look like the guy from the bar again. "What do you say, Sophie? Can we try this? Really try? Not just co-parenting, but being a real family?" Sophie looked at Maya, happily babbling between them. Then at Alexander, who was looking at her like she was the most important thing in his world. She thought about all the reasons it wouldn't work. Their different backgrounds, the media attention, the pressure of his world. But then she thought about the last 3 weeks. How he showed up every day. How he learned Maya's routines and her favorite songs. How he looked at their daughter like she was the greatest miracle he'd ever seen. How he made Sophie laugh even when everything felt overwhelming. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too. What if we mess this up? Then we figure it out together. That's what families do, right?" Sophie took a deep breath. "Okay, yes, let's try." Alexander's whole face lit up. He pulled her close, careful not to squish Maya between them, and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. Maya clapped her hands. "Dada mama!" They both laughed, and Sophie realized that maybe, just maybe, this crazy situation could actually work. But that evening, Sophie's phone rang with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Ms. Chen," a woman's voice said. "This is Victoria Whitmore, Alexander's ex-fiancée. We need to talk." Sophie's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About Alexander?" About what you're getting yourself into. Can we meet tomorrow, please? There are things you need to know. The line went dead before Sophie could respond. She looked at Alexander playing with Maya on the floor, both of them laughing at some silly game. He looked so happy, so genuine. But Victoria's words echoed in her mind. Things you need to know. What things? What was Alexander's ex trying to warn her about? And why did Sophie suddenly feel like everything was about to get much more complicated? Sophie didn't tell Alexander about Victoria's call. She knew she should, but something made her hesitate. What if Victoria knew something that would change everything? What if Sophie was making a huge mistake? The next morning, she told Alexander she needed to run some errands. He offered to watch Maya, which made Sophie's heart squeeze. A month ago, she was doing everything alone. Now she had someone who actually wanted to help. Victoria had suggested meeting at a quiet cafe across town. When Sophie arrived, she spotted her immediately. Victoria Whitmore was exactly what Sophie expected. Elegant, poised, wearing clothes that probably cost more than Sophie's rent. But her smile was warm when she saw Sophie. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said as Sophie sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't. I don't blame you. If I were you, I'd think this was some jealous ex thing." Victoria laughed softly. "But it's not. Alexander and I were never really together. Not in any way that mattered. Then why did you want to meet?" Victoria stirred her coffee, choosing her words carefully. "Because I know Alexander. I've known him for years. And I've seen him go through relationships before. He gets intense, throws himself completely into things, and then when reality hits, when things get hard, he bails." Sophie's chest felt tight. "No, that's not what I'm saying." Victoria looked up and her eyes were kind. Actually, the opposite. He doesn't bail. He stays even when he shouldn't. He fixes things even when they can't be fixed. He takes on responsibility for everything and everyone, and he destroys himself trying to make it all work. Sophie frowned, confused. "I don't understand." His parents had a terrible marriage. His father was never home, always working. His mother was miserable. But they stayed together for years because of duty, because of what people would think. Alexander grew up believing that's what love is. Sacrifice and obligation, but that's not, I know. But it shaped him. When he took over the company at 25, he worked himself into the hospital twice. When his younger sister went through a bad divorce, he blamed himself for not seeing the signs. He carries the weight of everyone's happiness on his shoulders. Sophie thought about Alexander showing up every single day, even when he was exhausted. The expensive gifts he bought trying to make up for lost time. The way he immediately wanted to sue everyone who said mean things about her online. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I care about him. Not romantically, but as a friend. And I can see that he's falling for you. Hard. The way he talked about you and Maya at that press conference. I've never seen him like that." Victoria reached across the table and touched Sophie's hand. "But you need to understand what you're getting into. Alexander will give you everything. He'll rearrange his entire life. He'll fight every battle for you. But sometimes he needs someone to tell him it's okay to just be human. To not be perfect. To admit when things are hard. You think I can't handle his world? No. I think you're exactly what he needs. Someone who doesn't want his money or his name. Someone who challenges him. Someone who sees him as just Alex, not Alexander Sterling, the CEO." Victoria smiled. "I just wanted you to know what you're dealing with. He's going to try to be everything for you and Maya. And sometimes you're going to need to remind him that being there is enough." After they said goodbye, Sophie sat in her car for a long time, thinking. Then she drove to Alexander's office. His assistant tried to stop her. "He's in a meeting. I don't care." Sophie walked past her and opened the conference room door. Alexander was in the middle of presenting something to a room full of executives. Everyone turned to stare at her. "Sophie, is everything okay? Is Maya?" "Maya's fine. She's with your assistant." Sophie took a breath. "I need to talk to you now." He didn't hesitate. Meeting adjourned. "We'll finish this tomorrow." The executives filed out, giving Sophie curious looks. When they were alone, Alexander came to her, worry all over his face. "What happened?" "You're scaring me." "I met with Victoria this morning." His face went pale. "What? Why?" "She called me. She wanted to talk about you." Sophie saw him preparing to be defensive and held up her hand. "She wasn't trying to break us up. She was trying to help me understand you." "Understand what?" "That you're going to try to be perfect." That you're going to take on everything yourself. That you're going to work yourself to death trying to make me and Maya happy. Sophie moved closer to him. But I don't need you to be perfect, Alexander. I need you to be real. I don't know what that means. It means when you're tired, you say you're tired. When things are hard, you tell me they're hard. When you mess up, you don't try to fix it with money or grand gestures. You just be human with me. Alexander's eyes were shiny. I'm terrified of letting you down. Both of you. You won't, not if you're honest with us. Not if you let us in. Sophie took his hands. These past few weeks, the moments I loved most weren't the expensive gifts or the big declarations. They were when you fell asleep on my couch because you were exhausted, when you couldn't figure out how to work the baby gate and asked for help, when you sang the wrong words to Maya's favorite song and she corrected you. I really am terrible at kids' songs, he admitted with a small laugh. The point is, those real moments, those are what matter. That's what being a family is. Not perfection, just showing up and being yourself. Alexander pulled her close, holding her tight. I love you. So much it scares me. I love you too. And that scares me just as much. He pulled back to look at her. Really? Really? I've been fighting it because I was scared. But Victoria was right. You're not like anyone I've ever met. And not because of the money or the success. Because you're you. Alexander kissed her then, and it felt different from before. Less desperate, more certain. Like they were both finally on the same page. 6 months later, Sophie stood in Alexander's penthouse. Their penthouse now. She'd finally agreed to move in. Not because of the fancy apartment, but because it meant Maya could have her own room and they could be together as a family. Maya was running around the living room, chasing after Alexander, who was pretending to be a monster. She was talking in full sentences now, and her favorite phrase was, "Catch me, Daddy." Sophie's parents were visiting, and her mom was laughing at the sight of a billionaire CEO crawling on the floor making monster noises. He's good with her, her father said, coming to stand next to Sophie. He really is. He changed his whole schedule around. He leaves work by 5 every day now. His board thinks he's lost his mind. Has he? Sophie smiled. Maybe a little, but in a good way. Alexander caught Maya and lifted her in the air, both of them laughing. Then he carried her over to Sophie and wrapped his free arm around her waist. What are you thinking about? He asked. About how crazy this all is. A year ago, I was a single mom just trying to make it through each day. Now look at us. Any regrets? Not a single one. Maya reached for Sophie's hand and Alexander's hand, pulling them together. Family hug. They squeezed her between them, and Sophie caught her mother taking a picture, smiling with tears in her eyes. That night, after everyone left and Maya was asleep, Sophie and Alexander sat on the balcony looking at the city lights. I have something for you, Alexander said, pulling out a small box. Sophie's heart jumped. Alexander, it's not what you think. Not yet anyway. He opened it to reveal a simple silver necklace with 3 charms, the letter M, the letter S, and the letter A. For our family, he said softly. Past, present, and future. Sophie's eyes filled with tears as he put it on her. It's perfect. You're perfect. You and Maya, you're everything I didn't know I needed. We're not perfect. We're messy and complicated, and sometimes Maya draws on the walls. That was one time, and I already told you I didn't mind. Sophie laughed. You hired someone to turn it into a mural, because her artwork deserved to be preserved. You're ridiculous. You love me anyway. I really do. They sat there in comfortable silence, and Sophie thought about that day in the office hallway. How Maya had run to a stranger and called him Daddy. How one moment had changed all their lives. People always said that love happened when you least expected it. Sophie used to think that was just something people said in movies. But now she knew better. Sometimes love showed up in the middle of a busy workday. Sometimes it came in the form of a toddler who knew exactly what she needed before anyone else did. Sometimes it took falling apart for everything to come together. What are you smiling about? Alexander asked. Just thinking about how Maya knew before either of us did. Knew what? That you were always meant to be her daddy, and maybe that I was always meant to find you again. Alexander kissed her forehead. Smart kid. She gets it from both of us. Definitely from you. Inside, they could hear Maya on the baby monitor talking in her sleep. Mama, Daddy, love you. Sophie and Alexander looked at each other and smiled. Because at the end of the day, that was all that mattered. Not the money or the media attention or the complicated past. Just the three of them figuring it out together, one day at a time. One family hug at a time, one moment at a time, and it was more than enough. It was everything.